So typically on this channel, you're going to see me making videos about the NBA where I analyze stuff like players, player comparisons, player rankings, different teams, and analyzing a lot of different things around the NBA. But in today's video, I'm going to be doing something different, and as you saw in the title of this video, what I'm going to be trying to do today is determine which is the most important factor of basketball between offense and defense. And as you can see, I definitely think it's offense, and I actually don't think it's really that close at all. And today I'm going to be giving you guys a lot of different reasons why I think offense is a lot more important than defense, despite defense being very, very important. Before we get started, if any of you are new to the channel, definitely be sure to subscribe so I don't miss out on any of my new NBA videos. And with that being said, let's get started. So about 2 weeks ago, I put up a poll on my Instagram story asking people what they think is more important in basketball between offense and defense. And the results ended up as 38% of people voting for offense and 62% of people voting for defense. And my thoughts on this are people aren't really looking at this the right way, and I have a lot of different reasons and examples to back up why offense is actually a lot more important than defense. And here's the thing, I think the 62% of people that said defense, most of them are really just saying that because they want to seem smart and that they're looking at the analytical components of basketball. But for me, they're not looking at this the right way, and I think that I actually value defense a lot more than a lot of those people that voted for it truly do. And as I mentioned, I have some examples to back this up, but if you guys watch the channel, you know that in most of my videos, I value defense a ton. It factors in all the time to my rankings, and I value it a lot. But ultimately, offense is more important, and here are some reasons. So let's look at it this way, and this is going to seem really funny and childish since all of us that watch this channel watch the NBA, but we're going to go back to the basics for a second here. The main goal of basketball is to score more points than the other team, and to do that you do need to limit the other team, but you also need to score your own points. And if on the offensive end of the floor you can't score the basketball, there's no possible way that you can get points on the board. But let's think of it this way, while defense is extremely important, and in the NBA it's been proven time and time again that you really do need a top 10 defense in the league to win a championship. And as you guys know, I value defense a ton, but think of it this way, there are times where people are wide open for shots and they still miss the shot. In other words, there's no defense and there's still not points being put up on the board. If there's no offense, there's no way you can score. In the same way that if you play really good defense, the offensive player could still make the shot. It's a make or miss league, and that's the point I'm trying to get across here. The fact that it is a make or miss league, defense still is very important, but the fact that it is a make or miss league makes offense a little bit more important, that you actually have to make the shot or miss it when you are wide open or when you are very heavily contested. Now let's look at it this way as well. There's a team that is all offense and can't guard at all, and then there's a team with all defense and can't score at all. The team that has the offense is going to win because the team that has the defense and no offense can't score at all. Eventually that team with all the offense is going to score against a very good defensive team. It's just a matter of time. So looking at this way is very technical and analytical, and it might be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to give some real life examples from the NBA of why as fans we tend to value offense a lot more than defense and why it is more important. So as I mentioned 2 weeks ago when I put up the poll asking people what was more valuable between offense and defense in basketball, 62% of people said defense. And then directly after that on the next story, I put up a poll asking who is the better player between Kyrie Irving and Rudy Gobert. And not surprisingly, 80% of people said Kyrie Irving. And I actually think this is a very close comparison and closer than you might think. But it really doesn't make any sense that 62% of people value defense more than offense, and then they would take Kyrie Irving over Rudy Gobert. Because think about it, Rudy Gobert is one of the best defensive players in the league and a pretty much average offensive player, along with his rebounding bringing up his stock. And then Kyrie Irving is an amazing, one of the best in the league at offense, but he's below average at defense. So when you think about it, the 62% of people that value defense more than offense supposedly should be taking the defensive player who's average at offense over the offensive player who is bad at defense. You see where I'm coming from here? when you balance it out, it really doesn't make any sense. And as NBA fans, some people might say that we take Kyrie Irving over Rudy Gobert because of Kyrie's flashiness and how he's fun to watch, but really, if we're being real with ourselves, when it comes to rankings, we're taking Kyrie over Rudy Gobert any day because we don't want to seem like someone who's stupid. And really, Kyrie Irving is the better basketball player than Rudy Gobert because offense is a little bit more important than defense. So let's look at another example here. When we look at the 62% of people who supposedly value defense more than offense, they should technically be taking a player with top 10 defense and bottom 10 offense in the NBA over a player with top 10 offense and bottom 10 defense. And this is going to seem exaggerated when we look at a comparison, but it is true. Technically, someone that does value defense more than offense should be taking that first player instead of the second. So when we think of someone that has top 10 offense and bottom 10 defense, the first person that comes to mind is Trae Young. Trae Young is incredible offensively, consistently averages around 29 points and around 8 to 9 assists. Definitely, in my opinion, a top 10 offensive player in the NBA. And then when we look at his defense, it's definitely bottom 10, and he really can't defend at all on the defensive end of the floor. And when we think of a player that has bottom 10 offense and top 10 defense, it's tough to think of someone, so I made a bit of a modification here. Let's take Jrue Holiday, a guard who is probably top 10 in the league when it comes to defense. Now imagine Jrue Holiday, who consistently puts up a good amount of scoring and is a good playmaker. Imagine him with bottom 10 offense in the league. We're talking a garbage player who can't score at all and really is a liability on offense. Take Jrue Holiday with bottom 10 offense and his defense, and then technically the person that values defense more than offense should take a Jrue Holiday with no offense over a current Trae Young. And again, this seems exaggerated, but when you do think about it, Jrue Holiday with bottom 10 offense is a top 10 defender with bottom 10 offense, and Trae Young is a top 10 offensive player with bottom 10 defense. And really everyone, without a doubt, is going to take Trae Young here, which really proves my point that when it comes to NBA fans, we do value offense more than defense, and ultimately it is a little bit more important. So if I haven't already convinced you that offense is more important than defense, a counter argument that you might be thinking of right now is using a player like Dennis Rodman, and maybe asking me, well, who do you think is better between a player like Dennis Rodman and Kyrie Irving? And my response to this is a couple of things. So Dennis Rodman is a different case here, because Dennis Rodman is a top 3 defender of all time. His defense was so good that it made him an all-time great, and also his rebounding brings up his stock a lot. If he didn't have that rebounding, he probably wouldn't be considered as great of an all-time player. But the fact that he's a top 3 defender of all time means that in this comparison, you have to compare him to someone who's a top 3 offensive player of all time. And yes, Dennis Rodman did not have good offense, so we're going to compare him to a player that has top 3 offense of all time and not very good defense. And someone that comes to mind here is Steph Curry. And it's obvious who you would take between a player like Steph Curry and Dennis Rodman. And maybe you do take Dennis Rodman here over Steph Curry, and that's when you truly value defense more than offense, and that's what I respect. Someone that considers defense more important than offense and then still would take a player like Kyrie Irving over Rudy Gobert, I just don't really understand how that makes sense. And when we look at all of the examples I've listed here of players like the Jrue Holiday with no offense versus the Trae Young comparison, it is really proven that offense is more important than defense, and as fans, we are doing the right thing by valuing it a little bit more. If you would take players like Jrue Holiday with no offense over Trae Young, that's your opinion and I can't change that. But I think it's fair to say that if I were to put a poll up right now on my Instagram asking who is better between Trae Young and Jrue Holiday with no offense, it's obvious Trae Young would win by a mile. So there you have it. That is the end of today's video, and as I mentioned multiple times throughout the video, I still value defense a ton, and probably a lot more than a lot of you people watching this actually value defense. You probably just don't realize it, but I value defense a lot. I understand that you need a top 10 defense to win a championship in the NBA, and as you guys know, I always factor in defense when it comes to things like rankings and comparisons. I value it a lot overall, but when we look at it in depth and at a technical kind of viewpoint like this, Offense is definitely more important than defense, and I've listed tons of reasons and tons of examples why it is, and why it is by quite a lot. So thank you all for watching this video. If you are new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos. Make sure to share this video with anyone that you think would find it interesting, and I'll see you all next video.